The Assassin and the Phoenix Part 1. Chapter 1. The Silk Quartz Blade. The dagger was meant for his heart, until she saw the name and felt her own twist first. The parchment still smelled like jasmine and blood. Mei Ling held the scroll under the flickering lantern, her fingers steady, her pulse anything but. The seal of the silk court, the coiled serpent wrapped in red thread, gleamed at the corner like it knew what she was about to do. Name: General Kaishin. Location: Imperial West Palace. Deadline: Spring Festival Eve. Method: bladed weapon. Poison discouraged. Leave no trace. She read it again. And again. Kaishin. The name sat in her chest like an ember that wouldn't go out. She didn't know why it felt familiar, only that it did, and that made it dangerous. Is there a problem? Mistress Anhua's voice was sharp silk behind her. The woman never appeared unless she already knew the answer. Mei bowed low, the blade in her sleeve brushing her wrist. None, mistress. Anhua circled her like a coiling shadow. You've always been our swiftest. Our quietest. You do not hesitate. I won't. You'd better not. The older woman leaned close. The Empress herself paid for this death. You'll be in and out before the fireworks begin. Make him smile, make him trust, then slit him open like the rest. Don't let that pretty face distract you. Mei Ling smiled, tight, professional, hollow. Pretty faces never last. Mistress Anhua stepped back into the dark, her footsteps silent on the marble floor. The red curtains whispered shut behind her. Alone again, Mei tucked the scroll into her sash and turned to the open window. Below, the city of Chang'an glittered like a dream drenched in lantern light. Perfume and smoke hung in the air. The spring festival was 3 days away. The streets would fill with song and silk, with masks and lies. And somewhere behind the golden gates of the Western Palace, the man she was meant to kill was already waiting. She slid the dagger into her sleeve. Tomorrow, she would meet him. Tonight, she would forget everything she thought she knew about her past. Chapter 2. The General with No Past. The Western Palace was not made for death. It was built for beauty, curved rooftops glazed with jade, silk banners rippling like rivers in the wind, golden koi dancing in ponds that knew no war. Servants moved like dancers, never speaking above a whisper. Music floated in the air, flutes and guqin, sweet and aching. Mei Ling walked among them as if she belonged. Her disguise was flawless, court musician, recently summoned from the provinces. She wore pale blue silk and carried a pipa cradled against her back, but it was the blade inside the hollow instrument that comforted her more than the strings. She passed under archways carved with phoenixes and dragons, past guards too busy admiring her eyes to ask questions. The silk court's false documents were perfect, but her posture did the real work, poised, untouchable, serene. Assassins didn't need to hide in shadows. The clever ones hid in plain sight. The first glimpse of him came just past the lotus garden. He was speaking with 2 officers beneath the cherry trees, the wind scattering pale petals around his boots like falling snow. Tall, sharp-jawed, dressed in black and crimson armor that gleamed in the sun. General Kaishin. He turned, and looked directly at her. Mei's steps faltered. His eyes were darker than she expected. Not cold, not cruel. Watchful. Tired. Too young to look that haunted. She felt her stomach twist, not with nerves, but with something stranger. Recognition. Why do I know that face? He gave her the smallest nod. Not of greeting, but of acknowledgement. Like she wasn't new to him. Like he'd seen her before. Before she could look away, he spoke to a guard without breaking eye contact. You. Musician. You're with me. The chamber was quiet and sunlit, with scrolls stacked in neat piles and maps stretched across lacquer tables. A carved phoenix spiraled across the ceiling in crimson and gold. May kept her hands folded. Polite. Distant. Calculating. Kai-Shin poured tea for himself. For her, he offered none. Your records say you play the pipa. From Jiannan province? Yes, General. Her voice was soft. Measured. He sat across from her, elbows on the table, gaze unflinching. But your accent isn't Jiannan. May smiled. My mother was from the north. My father, a merchant. We moved often. You lie well. She blinked. General? I said it as a compliment. He leaned forward. The court is full of liars. Most of them are clumsy. You are not. May let silence fall like a veil. This was a test. But of what? Kai gestured toward the pipa. Play something. Not a court tune. Something old. She unslung the instrument, her fingers brushing the hidden blade inside. But instead of striking, she played a folk melody her mother used to hum while brushing her hair. Haunting. Melancholy. From a life that never truly belonged to her. Kai's expression changed. When the song ended, he spoke low. My mother used to sing that. Before the fire. May stilled. The fire. He stood, facing the window now, voice suddenly distant. You don't have to tell me who you are. The palace likes masks. I'm not interested in peeling them off. You're not curious? I'm tired. He turned back to her, something unreadable in his gaze. And I've learned not to chase ghosts. They burn you when you get too close. May met his eyes and realized something that made her heart drop. He wasn't guessing who she was. He knew. Or worse, he remembered. But how could that be? They had never met. Had they? That night, alone in the guest quarters, May unrolled the scroll again. Kai-Shin's name stared up at her like it was written in ash. Her orders were clear. Her path clean. And yet she could still hear the way he had said. Before the fire. She didn't remember a fire. But now, she thought she could smell smoke. Chapter 3: The First Hesitation. The banquet hall shimmered like a dream stitched in gold. Silken lanterns floated from the high ceilings, casting honey-colored light over endless platters of glazed duck, rice wine, and candied lotus root. Courtiers laughed behind fans. Dancers spun like silk in the breeze. The scent of plum blossoms mixed with roasted spices, filling the air with a heat that clung to the skin. Mei Ling sat cross-legged on a raised platform with the other musicians, the pipa resting in her lap. Her hair had been pinned high with pearl combs. Her sleeves flowed like water with every movement. No one looked twice at her, just another pretty performer in a palace of illusions. But her heart thudded in her chest like a war drum. Tonight was the perfect moment to kill him. General Kai-Shin sat 3 seats down from the Empress, his armor replaced by deep crimson robes embroidered with phoenixes in flight. He was laughing, with the governor of Shu province. Relaxed? Off guard. A golden cup in his hand. One clean strike. Just one. She shifted slightly, her fingers brushing the hidden needle in her sleeve. Poisoned, yes, but not fatally. Just enough to paralyze. She'd slit his throat in the chaos. Slip out with the crowd. She glanced at Mistress Anhua's note again, hidden in her sash. Tonight. Do not delay. And yet, her fingers would not move. Because just before the toast, General Kai-Shin did something unexpected. He stood. Then turned to a servant girl carrying wine with trembling hands, and gently took the tray from her. She'd been shaking. Too nervous. The tray nearly spilled. If it had, she would have been beaten in front of the court, maybe worse. But he only smiled and whispered, "Thank you." then handed the tray to another, bowed to the Empress, and resumed his place. No one else noticed. But May saw everything. The music started again. May's fingers moved over the strings automatically, but her thoughts twisted like a trapped animal. He was a war general. A killer. A man she'd been told to end before he could betray the Empire. But there had been no cruelty in his eyes, no superiority, no hunger for power. Just weariness, and that quiet moment of grace that made something inside her ache. What are you doing? This isn't about kindness. This is a mission. Her jaw tightened. She would do it. After this set, she'd move closer, offer him a wine refill. The needle would slip between his ribs in the next breath. Just one moment. One breath. One. A scream shattered the music. A nobleman slumped forward at the center table, blood gushing from his nose, mouth, and ears. Servants dropped trays. Courtiers gasped. Guards rushed forward. The man twitched once, twice, then went still. Poison. But not from her. May stared in disbelief. She hadn't moved. She hadn't touched her needle. Her eyes locked with Kai's across the room. He was already rising, calling orders, his hand on the hilt of his blade. And then, just for a second, his gaze shifted to her. Suspicion. Confusion. Recognition. And again, that flicker of something deeper. As if he were asking a question she didn't yet understand. The banquet descended into chaos. Nobles fled. Servants screamed. The body was hauled away. The Empress was ushered out under a veil of guards. And all the while, May remained frozen behind her pipa, heart racing, mind unraveling. Who had done it? Why had they moved before her? And most importantly, why did Kai-Shen look at her like he'd expected her to be there? That night, she sat alone in her quarters, hands trembling as she unrolled a second scroll that had been slipped under her door. There was no seal. Just ink. Rough and rushed. You're not the only blade in this palace. Don't fail again. Eh? Her hands went cold. Mistress Anhua. Someone else had been sent. A backup. Or a replacement. Which meant she was no longer trusted. For the first time since entering the palace, Mei Ling was no longer sure if her orders were truly about loyalty, or if she'd been marked for something else entirely, disposal. And across the palace walls, lit by moonlight and watchfires, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Someone else wanted Kai-Shen dead. But not for the reasons she had been told. Chapter 4: The Phoenix Seal. The garden behind the Western Palace was not on any map. It lay hidden behind a wall of climbing jasmine and locked gates, accessible only through a stone corridor guarded by 2 silent warriors and a shrine to the long-dead Phoenix Emperors. No servant ever entered. No footsteps disturbed the gravel paths. The cherry trees here bloomed in unnatural silence. This was where she found him, alone, bleeding, and shirtless beneath the moon. Mei Ling had followed him. Not for the kill. Not yet. But because she needed answers. Because the man the Silk Court told her to murder did not match the man who saved a servant girl and took wine like it might burn him. Because someone else had poisoned a noble and left her holding the blame. And because, damn it, he knew her. She was certain now. She saw it in his eyes when he looked at her like a page torn from his past. Kai-Shen sat on a smooth stone bench, shirt flung over a railing, steam rising from his back. A clean cut traced his left shoulder, likely from his earlier skirmish in the banquet's chaos. He was binding it himself with shaking hands and bloody linen. May said nothing. Just stepped out from behind the flowering wall and let her presence announce itself with the rustle of her silk sleeves. He didn't startle. He just spoke. You shouldn't be here. May crossed the gravel path without fear. Neither should you. A silence. Then, I didn't poison him. I know, she replied. He turned at that, slowly, warily. Do you? She knelt beside him and took the cloth from his hand. Hold still. Surprise flickered across his face, but he obeyed. She cleaned the wound in silence, her fingers precise, gentle, betraying nothing. Then she saw it. The mark. Not a scar. Not a tattoo. Something older. Deeper. At the base of his spine, where the blood had run down and dried against his skin, something shimmered faintly in the moonlight. A seal. Intricate, ancient, and glowing faintly gold beneath the skin, like fire trapped under water. A stylized phoenix, wings spread, the tail curling in on itself like a spiral of eternity. Its eye pulsed once, like a heartbeat. May froze. Her breath caught. What is this? She whispered before she could stop herself. Kaishan tensed. You shouldn't have seen that, he said quietly. It's magic. Forbidden magic. His voice was bitter now. Lo. The phoenix seal. Passed down through blood. It marks the heir to the line that was supposed to be dead. He pulled his robe back over his shoulder and turned away. May stood. She felt like the air had changed. Like the shadows were listening. You're not just a general, she said slowly. You're a phoenix heir. I'm a mistake, he said. She stepped closer. Why hide it? He laughed once, a hollow, tired sound. Because everyone who knows what I am either wants to kill me or use me. And now that you've seen it, I'm not sure which one you'll be. May said nothing. Because the truth was, she didn't know either. Back in her quarters, May lit a single candle and opened the hidden slit in her pipa. The blade nestled inside had never felt heavier. The mission had shifted. She was no longer here to kill a general. She was sitting in the palace of a lost bloodline, assigned to murder the last heir of the Phoenix throne. And someone else had tried to do it already, poorly. Publicly. Which meant they weren't trying to kill Kaishan. They were trying to frame her. Outside her window, the wind picked up, scattering plum blossoms across the stone floor like falling ash. And far off in the hidden garden, the faint glow of the phoenix seal still pulsed against the dark. Chapter 5 Letters in the Firelight. The scroll wasn't hidden. It was left. Neatly placed on the low lacquered table in the dim reading chamber of the West Wing, just beneath a paper lantern carved with phoenix feathers. Not sealed. Not marked. No guard stood watch, no scribe shuffled nearby. But something about it pulled at her like a whisper in the dark. Mei Ling hadn't meant to follow him again. She'd risen early, unable to sleep. The palace had felt strange in the pre-dawn hour, too quiet, too hollow, like the bones of a dragon stripped of its flesh. And somehow, her feet had brought her here. To this wing. To this room. To this. She stared at the scroll. It was old. The parchment frayed at the corners, but the characters were precise. Northern brush style, elegant, controlled, unmistakably feminine. May reached for it without thinking. Then froze. Because in the second character of the first line, the ink looped exactly the way her mother used to write. No hesitation. No flourish. Just the tiniest tilt in the left stroke, like she'd taught May as a child. No. It couldn't be. Her mother had died when she was 8. Burned in a rebel siege, or so they told her. Hands shaking, May lifted the scroll and read. Kaishan. If you're reading this, then I am gone, and the phoenix seal has awakened. They'll tell you lies. That the bloodline was cursed. That your birth was a crime. That power like ours can't be trusted. But I remember you as a boy with wind in his hair and fire in his chest. I remember the way you laughed when the bells rang over the lotus fields. I wanted you to have a normal life. A hidden one. A safe one. But there is no safety in silence anymore. They are coming, Kai. For you. For the truth. And for the one who will one day remember who she is and come back to you. You already know her. You will know her again. Do not fear her. Even if she carries a blade. Lianhua. The name hit Mei like a thunderclap through the ribs. Lianhua. Her mother's name. Her real name. Not the borrowed one she was given in the orphan wing of the Silk Court. Not the Lianhua whispered when Mei first held a blade at age 10. This name lived in memory, scarred and sacred. She sank onto the cushion beside the table, staring at the scroll like it might vanish. It wasn't possible. It shouldn't be possible. But it was her handwriting. Her phrasing. Her mother's scent, that faint trace of peony and ink still clinging to the parchment after all these years. The message wasn't just for Kai. It was for both of them. A soft sound broke the silence. Kaishin stepped into the chamber behind her. No armor. No weapon. Just the same quiet expression he always wore when he was hiding something that hurt. He didn't seem surprised to see her with the letter. She left it for me when I turned 15, he said softly. I've read it 1,000 times. It always felt like a riddle. Mei didn't look at him. She was my mother. He didn't respond at first. Then, I know. Mei finally turned. How? She whispered. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to believe it, he said. If I said it out loud, it would make it real. That the girl I met once in the ash of the temple fire had grown into someone trained to kill me. She stared at him. We met? He nodded. Just once. You were maybe 6. Clinging to your mother's robe. I was the scared boy she was smuggling out of the city. Mei's voice cracked. And the fire? They burned the Phoenix Temple to erase us. You and I, we were the last ones who saw it before the sky fell. A long silence passed between them. Then Kai stepped forward and sat beside her, their shoulders barely touching. She told me, he murmured, that one day you'd come back with a dagger in your sleeve. That you wouldn't remember the truth. But that something would call you back. He looked at her, not as a target, or a spy, or a threat, but like a ghost returned. Do you believe me now? He asked quietly. Mei swallowed. Her throat felt raw. I don't know what I believe, she whispered. He nodded. That's fair. But I'm not going to kill you tonight. He looked away, a wry smile touching his lips. I'll take that as progress. Later that night, back in her chamber, Mei stood by the window long after the candle had burned out. She didn't sleep. She didn't move. She just kept replaying the letter in her head, and the warmth of his voice when he'd said her name like a secret remembered. And outside, somewhere in the gardens beyond, the phoenix seal pulsed on, quietly burning its way through fate. Chapter 6. A kiss that shouldn't happen. The dagger came from behind. Sharp. Fast. Whisper silent. Mei Ling caught the movement only because of instinct, the flicker of shadow across the lantern's silk, the change in air pressure behind her as she turned the corridor toward her quarters. She dropped instantly, pivoting low. The blade grazed her shoulder instead of slicing her throat. Close. Too close. She spun, kicked upward, and sent the attacker staggering back. Black robes. No insignia. Face masked? A silk cord ghost, just like her. Just like she'd been. Only this one had no hesitation. The assassin lunged again, blade angled for her heart. Mei ducked and slammed her palm into the attacker's wrist, twisting. Steel clattered to the floor. She didn't wait, she countered, driving her elbow into the figure's ribs, then swept the leg. The assassin hit the floor. And in the light, just for a breathless moment, she saw the face beneath the mask. Lien. Her old friend. Her training sister. The girl who used to braid May's hair when they were still barely more than children. You're late, Lien hissed. Mistress Anhua said you were soft. I wanted to believe otherwise. May's heart cracked, just slightly. Don't do this, she said, her voice sharp with disbelief and pain. Lien didn't listen. She launched upward, blade retrieved. But before either of them could strike again, a sword blocked the next blow. Kai Shin. He stepped in from the shadowed archway without armor, only a curved saber in hand and fire in his eyes. Back away, he growled, placing himself between the two women. Lien laughed bitterly. Of course. The general protects his whore. Before May could react, Lien turned and sprinted down the corridor, vanishing into the maze of side halls like a ghost. They didn't speak as Kai led her out of the palace wing. Not until they reached a small side chamber, abandoned, half-finished, dust-covered. An old archive, long forgotten. Only once the door shut behind them did the silence break. She was one of yours, he said. May nodded. Lien. She was going to kill you. I know. Kai paced the room once. His movements were sharp, controlled, but the fury simmered just beneath the surface. Why are they turning on you? Because I hesitated, May said. Because I didn't finish the job. And now you're the target. May didn't answer. She was staring at the old scrolls littering the table. Some of them had her mother's seal. Dust-covered. Forgotten. How long had the court been planning this? How deep did the betrayal go? She turned to Kai, her voice low and shaking. They were never going to let me leave this place. He stepped closer. Then don't. May blinked. I don't mean run, he said. I mean don't go back to them. Ever. I have nowhere else. You have this. His hand brushed her wrist. You have the truth. You have me. She looked up at him. And in that moment, something inside her broke. Or healed. Or both. The firelight caught the edge of his jaw. His chest was rising fast with each breath. He was standing close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the weight of the night pressing in around them. And then, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't slow. It was the kind of kiss that came from two people who didn't know if they'd survive tomorrow. The kind that tasted like secrets, and ash, and the beginning of the end. Kai's arms wrapped around her like armor. May's fingers tangled in his robes, pulling him closer, anchoring herself to the only person who wasn't lying to her anymore. For just one moment, the world was quiet. No court. No silk. No blades. Only fire. And breath. And memory. When they pulled apart, the silence hung between them like a thread strung too tight. I'm sorry, May said, breathless. Kai shook his head. I'm not. Then the distant sound of bells cut through the air, alarm bells. Guards shouting. Torches flaring to life. Someone else had been attacked. Or worse, someone had been killed. May turned toward the door, heart pounding. It's starting. Kai's jaw tightened. Then we hold the line. She met his gaze. For the first time, there was no mask between them. Only war. And whatever fragile and possible thing was now burning quietly between their hearts. Chapter 7. The Woman Who Never Missed. Mistress Anhua had many names. But in the Silk Court, they whispered only one. The final thread. Because once she came for you, there was nothing left to weave. It was past midnight when the Western Palace was sealed. Guards swarmed the gates. Servants were confined to quarters. Torchlight danced along the walls, and rumors crackled like fire across the corridors. Someone had tried to assassinate the Empress's cousin. The attempt failed. But the blade had been silk-wrapped. Only one place trained hands to kill that way. Mei Ling barely had time to think before she felt it, the shift in the air, the familiar weight of silence that preceded her. She turned. And there she was. Mistress Anhua stood at the far end of the empty lantern corridor, dressed in crimson robes lined with jet-black thread. No mask. No veil. Just her pale face, ageless and severe, and the same ring on her finger Mei had once traced as a child when she couldn't sleep. Mei's fingers found the hilt of her hidden blade. "You sent Lien," she said quietly. Anhua's voice was calm, like tea cooling in winter. "Lien was eager. But she lacked your restraint. She tried to kill me." "Yes," Anhua replied. "Because you failed." I hesitated. "Exactly?" The word landed like a knife. Mei stepped forward, but slowly. "Why him? Why Kaishin? He is not who he claims to be. The Empress fears what he might awaken. And now," she said, eyes narrowing, "I fear what you might awaken." Anhua reached into her sleeve and pulled free a long, curved blade etched with curling patterns. The same one Mei had seen her use a dozen times. The same one that had ended 3 rebels, 2 nobles, and 1 prince. "Don't make me do this," Mei said. Anhua's expression didn't change. "You were a child. You were broken. I gave you discipline. Purpose. A name. Don't insult me by pretending you can walk away. I remember my real name now." Anhua sighed. "So be it." She struck first. The fight was fast. Silent. Brutal. They moved like mirrors, same stance, same footwork, same ruthless elegance. Steel rang out in staccato bursts. Silk tore. Breath caught. Dust rose. Mei twisted low, blade flashing. Anhua caught her arm, wrenched her sideways, slammed her against a pillar. Mei kicked off the stone, flipped, landed hard. They circled again. "You still hesitate," Anhua said, voice calm, not even winded. Mei was. Her ribs ached. Blood dripped from a shallow cut above her brow. Then Anhua lunged. Mei barely dodged, too late to escape a slash along her ribs. Pain bloomed hot and sharp. "You think love makes you strong?" Anhua hissed. "Love makes you stupid. It makes you kill your sisters, betray your court, ruin everything we gave you." Mei gasped, staggering back. Her hand found a loose tile behind her, one she remembered from her first year here, when she'd practiced flips and landings in the hall while Anhua watched. She used it now. Spun. Tripped. Drove her blade upward. And for the first time, Anhua missed. The strike landed. Not fatal. But deep enough. Anhua hissed, staggered back, clutching her side. Mei rose, blade trembling in her hand. "You taught me to survive. I taught you to obey. Then you failed." Mei turned and ran. Blood soaking through her side. Breath ragged. Heart pounding. Behind her, Anhua didn't follow. She didn't have to. Because as Mei reached the edge of the corridor, she saw something that made her blood freeze. A royal seal burned into the scroll nailed to her door. One symbol. One word. Traitor. Mei stumbled inside, locking the doors, the wound screaming along her ribs. Kaishin was already there, waiting, pacing, sword still bloody from the earlier fight. His eyes widened when he saw her. She collapsed into his arms, breath catching. "She's here," Mei said. "She's not going to stop." Kai pressed his forehead to hers. "Then we leave tonight. They'll hunt us. Let them." I stabbed her, she whispered, shaking. I stabbed the woman who raised me. Kai didn't speak. He just held her tighter. And outside, in the silence beyond the palace walls, the war had begun. Chapter 8. Whispers in the Paper Lantern. The Western Palace had a way of hiding its bones in beauty. Even the oldest halls, the ones no longer walked, no longer swept, still held the perfume of jasmine, the shimmer of silk paintings, the carved lattice windows that filtered moonlight into poetry. But beneath the beauty, there were secrets. And one of them lay waiting inside the lantern archive. Mei Ling had never been in this part of the palace before. Few had. The hallway was narrow, steeped in dust, forgotten by time. Red lacquered lanterns hung from exposed wooden beams, their paper skins faded and torn. A few still flickered dimly, as though remembering what it meant to be fire. Kai led the way, his blade still sheathed, one hand pressed lightly to Mei's back as they walked. She leaned slightly into his warmth. Her side still throbbed from the fight with Anhua, but she refused to show weakness. There wasn't time. How did you know this place existed? She asked, voice hushed. My mother showed it to me before the Phoenix Temple burned, Kai said. She said if I ever started to remember who I was, I'd find the truth here. What truth? He didn't answer. Not yet. The lantern archive looked like a shrine. Crumbling scroll shelves. Floor-length drapes dyed red and gold. Dust-covered offerings to gods long erased from official record, wooden phoenix statues, jade medallions shaped like fire spirals, rusted incense bowls. But the most striking thing? The lanterns. Dozens. Hundreds. Hanging from the rafters, glowing faintly. And on the paper of each one, names written in delicate ink. Mei's breath caught. These are every bloodline tied to the Phoenix dynasty, Kai said. This archive kept their names alive long after the Empire declared them extinct. Hidden in plain sight. Lit only during the fire moon. Mei stared at the nearest lantern, her fingers brushing the paper. Lianhua. Her mother's name. And below it, another name. Her own. In a script she didn't remember learning. How is this possible? She whispered. They erased everything. Our names. Our history. Why leave this behind? Kai's voice was quiet. Because someone knew we'd come back. And they wanted us to see what was stolen. In the center of the room stood a stone pedestal. Atop it, a sealed scroll, bound in golden twine, untouched by dust. Kai hesitated before lifting it. When he broke the seal, the scroll unfurled with a whisper, revealing brushstrokes that shimmered faintly in the lantern light, as if written in embers. The phoenix does not rise for peace. It rises for war. When fire is forgotten and silk is sharpened into blades, the heir of ash and the girl with no name shall burn the mask from the Empire's face. They will love. They will fall. One must die, so the other may rise. Mei felt her heartbeat stutter. Is this? She began. Kai nodded. The original prophecy. Buried after the last Phoenix War. My mother said it was destroyed. But she must have hidden it here instead. They stood in silence, the weight of it settling over them like ash. They will love. They will fall. One must die. No, Mei said. I don't believe it. It's not a curse, Kai murmured. It's a design. A trap. One written by those who feared what the Phoenix bloodline could become. She turned away from the pedestal, pacing. Her thoughts spun like storm winds in a jar. If the Empress knows this, if the Silk Court knows, then this isn't about you. It's about us. Kai nodded. We're not just inconvenient anymore. We're dangerous. Mei's breath caught in her throat. They'll kill everyone around us just to erase the possibility. We have to move faster than they do. She stopped. Faced him. What are you saying? I'm saying there's one other place that might help us, Kai said. The last known Phoenix sanctuary, hidden beneath the temple ruins outside the city. If we can reach it, there may be more. Records. Relics. Weapons. Or. He paused. A way to break the cycle. May stepped closer. You believe in fate? I believe in fighting it. Their eyes met, tired, hunted, burning. She reached for his hand and squeezed it. We go together, she said. If I'm meant to fall, then let it be at the edge of fire, with my blade pointed at the ones who lied to us. Not at you. He didn't speak. He just kissed her hand, soft, reverent, like she was something sacred. And then, a crash from the entrance. Torches. Voices. Soldiers. The palace had found them. May blew out the nearest lantern and grabbed his hand. Run, she whispered. They slipped into the secret corridor behind the archive wall, leaving prophecy, past, and ash behind them as the sound of the hunt rose like thunder in the halls. Chapter 9: Ashes of the Silk. The winter wind outside the palace hit like a blade. It howled through the pines and swept snow in angry spirals across the mountain path. The sky had gone black. Lanterns flickered along the outer walls, but May and Kai were already gone, vanished into the narrow ravine behind the palace's forgotten garden gate. They didn't speak as they ran. Didn't dare. Footsteps behind them. Shouts echoing through the trees. The chasing hounds of the court, silent monks, lantern blind, trained to hunt phoenix blood by scent. May bled from her ribs. Kai's knuckles were raw, frostbitten. Every breath burned. And still they ran. Because to stop was to die. Because the court had declared them traitors. Because the prophecy had named one of them a sacrifice. An hour later, they found shelter in the hollowed-out ruin of an abandoned watchtower, a crumbling relic from the wars of the last dynasty. Ivy and ice crept down the walls. Rats scurried in the corners. The floor sagged, the door barely held. But it was warm enough to survive. And hidden enough to rest. Kai dropped to the floor, gasping. May collapsed beside him, tearing open the sash that wrapped her side. Blood seeped through the bandages. Not fatal, but deep. Let me, he said. She hesitated. Then nodded. He peeled the silk back gently, hands steady despite the tremble in his limbs. The wound was angry, bruised. He cleaned it with melted snow and wrapped it again with cloth torn from his own undershirt. You've done this before, she said softly. Too many times, he replied. They sat in silence for a while. Snow drifted in through the cracked window. Wind moaned through the beams like a forgotten spirit. Kai looked over at her, eyes dark in the firelight. You remembered something, didn't you? In the lantern archive. When you saw your name. May didn't answer at first. Then, yes. She pulled a scrap of paper from the lining of her boot, one she'd carried for years without knowing why. It was brittle now, worn soft from age and sweat. She unfolded it. 3 characters. Ink faded to near nothing. Not her name. Not her mother's. But a phrase. The silk burns cleanest in truth. Kai stared. I've seen that before, he whispered. She nodded. So have I. And I know where. The memory hit her like lightning. A courtyard. Fire. Screaming. She was a child, hiding beneath a stone bench. Her mother pressed this same scrap of silk into her hand, lips trembling. If you forget everything else, she'd whispered, remember this. Then the fire took her. Then the black-robed figures came. And then, the silk court. May stared into the small flame they'd built from broken floorboards. The phrase isn't a poem. It's a code, she said. A key to something hidden in the fire records. The Silk Court's initiation files. Burned copies. Rewritten histories. If I find the real version, I'll know who gave the order to kill my mother. Kai's jaw tightened. You think the Empress gave it? No. Her voice was ice. I think she obeyed someone else. Who? I don't know yet, she whispered. But I'm going to find out. Kai reached into his cloak and pulled free a ring, gold, simple, bearing a phoenix etched so finely it looked as if it might fly. I've been holding on to this, he said. It was passed down through the bloodline, but I've never known why. He placed it in her palm. It warmed against her skin. A soft click sounded from the floorboards beneath her. They froze. She stood, eyes scanning the shadows. One cracked board near the corner had shifted. She knelt, pulled it up, and found a compartment. Inside, a sealed scroll case made of ashwood and bound with phoenix silk. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single message written in the same burning ink as the prophecy. The girl with the blade shall cut the mask from the face of the Empire. But she must first decide, is truth worth what it will destroy? Kai looked over her shoulder. That wasn't meant for me, he said. No, May whispered. It was meant for the one who survives. That night she didn't sleep. She sat with the scroll across her knees, her blade across her lap, and her heart strung between past and future. They wanted her to choose. Kill him. Run with him. Burn the truth. Save the lie. But Mei Ling had already made her choice. She would burn it all. And from the ashes she would rise.
Across every empire, every forgotten age, stories still whisper. If this tale stirred your spirit, leave a like to honor the echoes of the past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice weaves a new legend into the sands of time. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Historical Fantasy Stories, where myths walk beside history, and every discovery changes the world. The next forgotten legend is waiting to be found.